Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed, and we are in the Socrates and Jesus book today, A Dialogue in Heaven. One of the four aspects we have discovered in the new art, Philodainoia, the love of understanding, is philosophy, applying our mind to understanding what's true. Along with, of course, midwifery. You're not in the game unless you are in the midwifery book, which is applying your mind to purifying yourself from what you are carrying that's false and blocks you from seeing the truth. And you're not really in the game unless you're listening to the guidance from your dream master as well. Those are the three. Plus, we also want to be sharing what we're learning, which is the fourth one, mythology. Can you share what you've been learning together with us on this channel? So in the first one, applying our mind to understanding the truth. Well, normally, lots of thumbs ups today. I guess it's because my thumb is doing this. Normally we are in that aspect of the game by having our nose in a Platonic text, having our nose in a Balboa translated Platonic text, because that's where we get the words from Socrates. And for the last 1,000 years, we haven't been able to do that because we haven't been reading good translations. We've been reading garbage translations. And and the more that we compare the Balboa actual translation of the actual ancient Greek to what we've been doing previously, the more we see how garbage those translations we've been reading at school have been. So we can actually do real philosophy now, which is fantastic. Hooray for that. So, that's the applying our mind to understanding what's true about ourselves, about reality, about things like beauty. What is the true nature of beauty? What is the true nature of justice? Don't we want a just world? We better find the model of what justice is. Otherwise, we're going to have things like fascism and capitalism and starvation and mass exploitation through capitalism and fascism and so on. So we better find out the model of justice, not only for our world, but for our soul. Because ultimately, if we're here for anything, it should be to learn how to harmonize our soul, ourselves, our psyche, most excellently to give rise to our best functioning and our happiest feelings. But also a development that will benefit us in this life and beyond. Because if there is any sort of immortality to our souls, to ourselves, then we have a perhaps unique, or we have an opportunity at least here to do some learning. We can learn while we're here. A lot of people don't learn while they're here, partly because Philodainoia is a new thing, and we've only recently had the translations of Socrates. We've only recently got the book on midwifery, an understanding of how to remove human problems that has been buried for 2,000 years. Nevertheless, a lot of people aren't doing learning, but now we can. So we can join the true hero's journey. That little circle that explains the steps of the hero must take in the journey in a story to complete the hero's journey. We are doing, well, the archetype or the ideal, the paradigm of that.
You're a wizard, Harry.
We are all wizards, Harry. So, applying our mind to understanding what's true for the benefit of our soul and the world. Well, here's something interesting. Another master of the Logos is the author of the midwifery book, Dr. Pierre Grimes. And he has written a dialogue called Jesus, and he's written a few actually. We might be starting another one on this channel. I'm kind of excited to get in that one. That's a really good one. It's called Is It All Relative? And there should be a link below this video if you want to find a copy of that online for free. You can borrow it from the archive. library. And some people have even told me that there's a way of downloading it, which is cool. You might need an extension to your web browser allowing you to download the books. Nevertheless, or you can buy it if you want to support Pierre's family and the publishing company. You can buy a copy for yourself. Find it online. Is It All Relative? Fantastic book. We might be starting that soon. But this is another dialogue he's written, the last one he'd published. Although he does have another one coming out, hopefully soon, a post-mortem book that he's been working on for a long, long time called Return of the Gods. That's an interesting one. I've been waiting for that for a long time. Yeah, for as long as I've known him, actually. That's an interesting thing. So this is the one that has been published. You can find a hard copy of this book for yourself if you want it. Jesus and Socrates, A Dialogue in Heaven. So this would go into the category of understanding or applying our understanding to find what's true. It also is a way of training our understanding as well. And as we've been reading in the midwifery book, it is also the next evolutionary step we can take as animals, as evolving consciousnesses. Because that evolutionary step is across the middle of that divided line, not really the middle section, from belief-based thinking, being moved by shapes and colors, to understanding-based thinking, to be moved by the intellect, nous, ousia in being, where our principles and causes and fundamental eidos ideas exist, have their own selfhood in being, which is apprehended in nous, which is the spiritual one of the spiritual experiences, mind knowing itself eternally. And we have our first spam chatter. Every single stream we get one of these. Spam, spam, spam. Yay for capitalism. Why? Because if there wasn't a financial imperative and a financial need, there wouldn't be people wasting their life energy and wasting the life energies of other people trying to scam them for money. Sad state of affairs, but something we can absolutely turn around. And one of the ways we can help turn that around is by understanding what has influenced our way of thinking today. Now, two of the biggest influences of Western thought have been the characters of Socrates and Jesus. What's special about these two guys as well is they didn't write anything down themselves. They left it to their followers to write stuff down. But what if these two chums met up in the afterlife, in heaven, which is this big cloudy space we find ourselves in today? What if they met up to have a dialogue, to reflect on their lives and maybe the influence they had? It's undeniable that these two figures are perhaps the most influential of where we are as a species right now, at least in the West. But also undeniable that these are the most misunderstood, misinterpreted people out there. As we've been learning in our reading of the Balboa translation, the way we are taught to understand Socrates is pretty much the exact opposite of what he was actually saying. What we pass off as philosophy today isn't philosophy, it's philodoxia, the love of opinions. Kant's opinions, Hegel's opinions, and how to guess your teacher's opinions or your boss's opinions so you can get a good grade or keep your job and your healthcare, and so your children don't starve. Love of opinions, and how to go on YouTube and debate your opinions with some fascists' opinions or some right-wingers' opinions or some Nazis' opinions, and both people walking away with the same stupid opinions they walked in with. Some more stupid than others, of course. But stupid because we're not really interested in opinions. Opinions just reflect the beliefs we already have. Some people's opinions are more accurate or are closer to the truth, or might even hit the mark more often. But we want understanding. We want understanding so that we can always hit the mark. And we can develop our understanding to reach knowledge, which is the mark. So, that's how we teach philosophy. How to use language to own your opponent or destroy them or end their career, which makes a catchy YouTube video, which makes you money, which of course adds to the enshittification of our minds, because that's what capitalism does. It just makes things worse and worse and worse for money. Hey, welcome Funky Fox. Howdy, howdy, howdy. You have come at a good time. We're just about to start a new text. Last episode we read the foreword by Jeffery Mishlove. And if you are interested, you can check out Jeffery Mishlove's YouTube channel called New Thinking Aloud. And I am a big fan of that only for one reason. He interviewed Pierre in the last years of his life. So if you want something really cool, if you want a good introduction to real philosophy, Jeffery Mishlove's interviews with Pierre Grimes on New Thinking Aloud is a fantastic way in. And he wrote the foreword to this book. And we've been talking about how our evolutionary process as individual souls and as a species is to move from belief-based thinking, what we normally are taught is philosophy, how to use language to debate or argue the beliefs you already carry, which is stupid, to understanding-based thinking. And the way of relating to people through understanding-based thinking is the dialectic. How to move hand in hand together through the journey that we are all here to make as living beings, as sentient beings, a journey from belief into understanding. Because understanding can grasp the truth of reality in the experience of nous. Understanding can make sense of that experience that understanding has prepared you for. Understanding can be applied even to that experience of enlightenment or knowledge or nous. To wonder about what's the cause of that. And of course, in philosophical midwifery, you can use your understanding to help people go through that journey of discovering the cause of their problems, their fundamental pathologos, false beliefs, and help them through this dialectic to purify themselves of their false beliefs that cause their problems and limit their growth and evolution. So in other words, philosophical midwifery is understanding applied to solving human problems. And so, if you want to understand why the world is in such a terrible, terrible place, it's simply because we don't know that art, or not enough people know and practice and share that art, the art of how to understand and remove human problems. So, we just play out our problems to our suffering, to our frustration, and eventually, soon, to the death of our species. Many species have gone extinct on this planet. We are in line to be the next one. If we don't want that to happen, we have to do midwifery. There's no ifs or buts about it. That's just a true statement. Because it's based on understanding. So, that's why we do philosophical midwifery on this channel, and we talk about it a lot. It's the most important thing we can do. But also, hand in hand with that, we have to be applying our understanding to find the truth. Normally, we do that by applying the dialectic to the true nature of reality by studying the Balboa translations of Plato's dialogues. We have just started a new one, the Symposium, where Socrates demonstrates the dialectic and shows how it can be applied to beauty and love. And he recounts his journey to his first enlightenment experience of ultimate reality under the guidance of his female teacher, Diotima. Now, I'm emphasizing female because, again, we live in a culture mired in ignorance. One very strong, prevailing type of ignorance is sexism. The idea that women are somehow less than men, which is stupid and wrong. And we have a demonstration of that because Socrates himself had a female teacher, someone who was a master of the Logos and was a lady. So there you go. No more sexism. Done that. The simplest, cleanest argument against sexism and all of that right-wing bullshit that tries to justify subjugating people, money, wealth. Wealth is relative, of course. So if you want a billionaire, you have to subjugate. Wealth comes on the backs of people. So instead of talking about how do we get rich, we should be talking about how do we have equality. But of course, the right wing, which there is no right wing party, of course, it's just a pathologos party, has to justify otherizing people. Oh, we get to be rich, you get to be poor because you're a woman, because you're a immigrant, because you're on the wrong religion. Same thing for fascism. Same thing for anyone that doesn't seek to recognize all human beings as the same mind. Trying to discover its own mind and the highest reach of the mind through the development of understanding and the purification of belief. All human beings are the same self. The unfolding of the self to know itself, to return to the knowledge of self through the logos, through understanding. We're all the same. Anyone who tells you otherwise is stuck in a problem or is lying to you, which again means that they're in a problem, because why would you lie? If truth, logos, mind, and self benefits ourselves, is the training we are here to do, and benefits our whole species, and is the only thing that will stop us from our extinction. Which is one of the reasons why we have this channel. Normally this is a esoteric teaching, because there is a strong power in beliefs. There is a power in our lack of understanding. It wouldn't be much of a block to understanding if it didn't fight against understanding. It would be a crummy block. So normally this kind of thing is reserved for people who have already shown that they are genuinely interested in truth. They are genuinely interested in development. They are genuinely interested in changing their minds. As we see in these YouTube videos, people saying, well, I don't debate fascists. Oh, why not? Aren't all opinions equal? No, they're not. Some opinions are stupid and wrong. In fact, opinions themselves are a lower class of thinking. Understanding is what matters. But if you're not interested in getting understanding, then I'm wasting my time. We see that even in these debates that we see in YouTube. Excuse me. So normally you have to show that you're interested in purifying what you're carrying that's false. You've got a reason to, you've got goals. And your goal isn't to be a good tribe member. So I get a pat on the head from Daddy Trump or Mummy or Daddy or whoever. Use my words to be a good Jew and defend Judaism. Use my words to be a good Christian and defend Christianity. You can't do that. It doesn't work. Because that's not understanding. It's a belief. So normally it's reserved for people who have shown that they have more integrity than that and they want to find truth, even at the cost of the beliefs that they had as children, which they love. Now, they don't love their next door neighbor's belief. They don't love the beliefs of the guy across the street. So immediately when you have that kind of reasoning, you see how fucking terrible it is to be loyal to the beliefs that you just happen to have as a baby. It's sick. It's Nazism, to be blindly loyal to Hitler. That was the insult we had against the Nazis. They were dogs, because dogs are loyal without judging who they're loyal to. Nazi dogs. Now, it's easy to point at the Nazis, but remember, everyone in Germany was like that. Or enough people were like that. Majority. Or there was a part of humanity that was able to be manipulated. That's universal. That's the important thing to recognize. It's easy to see in the guy across the street, or the people in Germany, or the people across the people next door, or the people who don't have your religion, but it's integrity to realize, therefore, I too must have a blind spot. I too was a baby who had to learn not through thinking and understanding, too young for that, but through beliefs. Therefore, I too have problems. Newsflash, that's what it means to be human. Every human being gets fundamental false beliefs called pathologos that blind us from truth, prevent us from making that evolutionary jump to understanding, cause our problems. Therefore, integrity is to be honest with yourself and say, well, okay, well, what do I have to do? So normally this was an esoteric teaching because you had to show you've already been doing that already. Otherwise, why waste our time? Or why deal with people fighting back? I think that's wrong. I think some beliefs are good, like my daddy's beliefs. I'm gonna beat you up, says most human beings when you introduce the idea of understanding. So why put ourselves in danger? They killed Socrates, didn't they? And the reason is, well, we don't have time to mess around anymore. We don't have time to baby humanity. It's just time to just tell the truth. It's the truth. And the truth is, you will have problems with it. The truth is, you will, if you're interested in this podcast, in this series, you'll be interested for a period of time and then you won't be. You'll think it's stupid, or Jed's gone off the rails, or Socrates has gone crazy, or Pierre Grimes was okay up until a point. Because it wouldn't be much of a block if it didn't block you. And if we are in human beings reflecting on human problems, we have to acknowledge that we are human beings in the human problems as we try to discover human problems. And human problem has to protect itself, has to sustain itself over time. So our human problems will function most strongly as we learn to understand human problems. Our seeking to understand human problems will surface our human problems the most. Not only that, you will be in it. You will be experiencing the full force of human problems if you are the kind of person who wants to understand human problems for yourself or for your loved ones and your relationships with them, or for our world and our species. Whatever level of motivation you have. Now keep in mind, even if you are trying to save our species, you have to also be fundamentally working on yourself primarily. That's an important thing. But whatever is your motivating factor, you will face those very problems that have kept us in barbarism and Nazism and fascism and capitalism and inequality and sexism and prejudice. For since we were cavemen, it goes all the way back to the first human beings in a cave without this reflective capacity, scared of everything outside the cave and having to be blindly loyal to whatever way of being was in our tribe. Some tribes were eaten by saber-toothed tigers, and the ones most scared of everything different from their family happened to be the ones that survived. So it's an evolutionary trait as well as a spiritual one. There's a spiritual reason why we're here, but there's also an evolutionary cause to it that has served its purpose. We'll go extinct now. Look at MAGA. What do? Everyone different from you. The scientists. And also, war on thinking itself. Let's defund science. Let's murder people who have brown skin. Let's send them to concentration camps in Florida and El Salvador and Guantanamo Bay. Yeah, concentration camps. Let's murder all the Palestinian children. Because they're different from you, right? Different beliefs, look different, different shapes and colors. It can only end in one way: extinction. We can absolutely turn it around. Make our whole planet a fun place. Because if all we have to do is recognize that beliefs, and especially pathologos, is the cause of problems and is what divide us, but everyone can understand. Everyone is here to understand. And what we need to understand is our self, our mind, and the logos. The first three hypotheses of Parmenides, which is why they say Parmenides is the greatest book never read. If only we had read that book. Well, we can. And we have the Balboa translation, and you can get it for free. And we've read the introduction and the first hypothesis on this channel, so you can check that out too. So while we have the capacity to be the absolute worst kind of species, which we're playing out right now, we also have the potential to turn it around and create the best kind of world. Not as a matter of opinion, but as a matter of understanding, which is true, which is universal, which benefits everyone, and therefore must be a principle. A principle for our own souls, our own relationships, philodainoia, the love of understanding, and a principle that all laws should be based on for them to be just. Now, that's applying our mind to removing our problems. Applying our mind to understanding the truth means you have to have a nose in a Balboa translation of a Platonic text. We have just started the symposium. But in that same category, you can say, well, this book, it's a dialogue, it's not Plato, but it's a dialogue nonetheless from a master of the logos. So we're not reading Kant or Hegel, people who haven't mastered the logos, who haven't done midwifery. No, Socrates and Pierre Grimes are two masters of midwifery and the logos. That's why we read them first. We can then go on to read Hegel and Kant if we want. And we probably will on this channel because of their influence on culture. But with the understanding of the ideal in our back pocket, so we can judge, that's when he stopped talking about understanding and talking about his Christian beliefs. Or that's when he stopped understanding and gave up, because that's his problem, he gives up. Or that's when he stopped reasoning well and started to appeal to his family tradition. Why? Because that's what all humans do, because human beings have pathologos beliefs until they master midwifery, of course. So we have our nose in the symposium at the time of reading this, and we also are putting our nose right in the middle of a dialogue between Socrates and Jesus that happens in heaven. Let's jump in. I hope you're as excited as I am, because this book fucking kicks ass. I don't exactly know why and how it kicks ass, and that was a little bit frustrating because I read it a couple of times before Pierre passed away, and I didn't. At the end of his life, I didn't get to talk to him as much as I would have liked to, but he did ask me, what do you think of the book? And I said, it's amazing. I can't believe how amazing it is. It seems like one of the greatest, or the greatest book I've ever read. But I didn't completely grasp why. I could sense it. I could see bits and pieces. I could see how the puzzles were there. I could see the ending was a kind of ending I've never seen in a book before. In a good way. The puzzles that he was bringing up were completely uncompleted, but I could tell it's for a good reason. He's giving us work to do. This is not a homework assignment, because that sounds lame, but it's a huge gift, this book. That you will only see how amazing this gift is if we together apply our minds to unpacking the puzzles. Because you have to see the puzzles first. And the puzzles aren't always given. You have to find the puzzles first and then use the text to solve the puzzles. And in fact, we might even say, hey, it's because of the last year and a half or so of this podcast, as we've been learning how to read in this new way, that might have been a necessary preparation to be able to unpack this present, unlock this gift, unpack this gift, unlock this something, doorway to this amazing gift. So very, very excited to get started. Let's all jump in. And thank you for joining me, whether you're watching me live on Twitch or on YouTube, or you're watching the videos afterwards. Thumbs up. Thank you for, taking this journey with me.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
Let's jump in. There's our ancient tablet. And let me just center it a little bit. All right, let me just pause for one real quick second to explain the excitement of this book. Now, at the time of recording, we have this huge fascist movement taking over the world, led by the figurehead Donald Trump, who isn't Christian himself, but makes use of the Christians or the evangelistic Christians in America, manipulates them to get the support for his fascism as he kills them, as he takes their money, as he takes away their healthcare. I mean, there's a few different moving parts, like his involvement with different governments and things like that, but there's that. There are other cultural beliefs, like the justification of slavery happened through Christianity, the Crusades, the Dark Ages. The Christian forces, the Roman Christian forces, murdered the philosophers, shut down the academy, burnt the libraries, completely changed our trajectory of human history. We could have gone down the line of Hellenic thought, the love of understanding, or blind obedience to authorities or belief. We went through the negative one. Sexism. The Bible has been the book that has been justifying sexism in the West for 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years. Justification of killing other people because they might have the devil in them. So you can't reason with the devil, so there's no understanding problems. It's just murdering. Onward Christian soldiers marching as to war is what we sung in church when I was little. All tied to this one person. That's the influence of Jesus. And on the other side, Socrates, somebody who helped people remove their false beliefs, coined the term philosophical midwifery. It was known. The story of Achilles was about somebody going through midwifery and dream analysis. The Iliad. And we'll read that on the channel hopefully someday soon. But also he somehow was able to see where humanity was going and give us teachings that we are unlocking today when we need them most. At this turning point within our history, we either extinction, continue to torture and abuse and murder and starve our own selves, which is completely immature and irrational and harmful and cruel and sadistic and sick, or we listen to the words of Socrates, learn to remove problems with midwifery, as he showed us, learn to understand that we're all the same, so that it would be silly, it would be a sign of sickness. Hey, you don't beat up your left arm with your right arm. That would be crazy. You would have a sickness. You would go to a psychiatric institution because it's your arm you're beating up. That sort of sickness is what we are facing. We think we're different. We're not different. And in our work, we see, as we've been reading at the end of chapter 4 of the midwifery book, as you go through midwifery and you remove the false beliefs you get from childhood that go all the way back to caveman days, it's a family curse. It's a family lineage that goes all the way back to our pre-language tribes, afraid of anything different to the tribe, blindly loyal to tribe leader. That might have had an evolutionary purpose back then, but just causes our fucking sickness today. as we go through that process, we realize our goals are intrapersonal. It goes beyond us as an individual ego. It's our whole destiny. It's not just my destiny or your destiny of the wonderful viewers here. Claps for you. But it's the destiny of man. Not only the destiny of mankind, all sentient beings who've evolved to this level. So that's the significance of these two figures. Both completely misunderstood. Written by someone who has understood them both, because he has gone through this process. He literally wrote the book on midwifery. He rediscovered it, realized, oh shit, that's what Socrates had been saying. That's what Homer had been saying. And also is able to use that development of the Logos understanding to understand and recognize the Jesus figure. So the two most important characters in a book written by the best fucking possible person to write a book about them, perhaps better even than Socrates, because he did write things down and he did actually add to the Socratic tradition. Now, Socrates, we know him for his work on philosophy, the dialectic or understanding, dianoia, applied to the true. We do have, as we're going to be seeing in the symposium, accounts of him doing midwifery, but we don't have anything written down about that. And we do have him saying often that it's only through dream analysis that you can properly do midwifery. And at the end of his life, as we saw in the Phaedo, he said, I really want to write poems, stories, taking Aesop's fables and adding the Logos in. So it's someone who recognizes there are those four aspects, didn't do the mythology one. We killed, not because of, we killed him, that's on us. But also we don't have dream analysis and midwifery from him because, again, we killed him in front of Plato, so Plato didn't want to write about that because this is also Homer, and the justification for killing him was against Homer, against the official religions. So we only got one thing from Socrates. The author of this book brought back those other three and helped a translator, Juan Balboa, to be able to translate Socrates, so we had the first one again. So bringing all four aspects of the human art we are all here to master, dianoia, the love of understanding. Not only that, he added to the tradition. As we've been getting little tasters of, and as we read the midwifery book, he showed how, hey, our everyday thoughts, tangents, and fantasies play a role with our problems, with our dreams, adding to the midwifery tradition. So someone who rediscovered Socrates' work, or, by the way, Socrates grew up in a world, he had Diotima, his teacher in the symposium. He had Parmenides and Zeno, teachers and fellow travelers in the... My background changed. I wonder why. That's weird. Anyway, in the Parmenides, which we can read. So Socrates came from this tradition, but Pierre Grimes had to reinvent the whole fucking thing himself. Not only that, he was a war hero against fucking Nazis. Literally fought the Nazis at 17. Had to lie about his age to get into the war. So a very strong case can be made that Pierre Grimes is greater even in terms of a consciousness or in a level of evolved being than Socrates. He's writing the book that we're reading. This is why I'm so excited. This is also my frustration as well, because it's like we are going to watch a one-on-one match between Michael Jordan in his prime against LeBron James in his prime. Who wouldn't want to see that? Now imagine that world was available and this one-on-one was happening in this fantasy world where they're both at their prime at the same time. But you are the only one who knows about basketball. You couldn't be more excited. It couldn't be you couldn't imagine a better event. But no one has even heard of basketball. So how can you communicate how great this thing is going to be? That's my excitement in a nutshell. Only it's Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and the referee is, I don't know, who's even greater than both of those? Pele or something. Pele is refereeing. How about this? Messi in his peak is having a full-on one-on-one, no holds barred, no tricks barred match against Ronaldinho at his prime. And Cristiano Ronaldo is holy shit, yeah, Ronaldo, the first Ronaldo. Oh God, who do I pick? Ronaldo Groucho or the first Ronaldo, the striker from Brazil, against Messi. Okay, how about this? Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo are going 2-on-2 against Ronaldinho and the original Ronaldo, and Maradona is the referee. Maradona and Pele are both refereeing. I don't know, something like that. Imagine that. Imagine that, but you live in a world where nobody knows football. Anyway, so I don't know if I'm going to make this little speech again in the series, but it's worth sharing at the beginning. That's how cool this is. But not only that, it's a game that he is inviting you to play. By playing this game, by showing up at this 2-on-2 match, you can potentially become as great as Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Pele, and Maradona. You can be as great as them. In your own way. In your own style. Because each of those people in that list are all great, but they all have their own style, right? That's the book. And that's my excitement about the book. Let's jump in. Jesus, Socrates and Jesus, a dialogue in heaven. By Pierre Grimes. In the analogy, he was Pele and Maradona. And they did the fusion dance and they became one person. Introduction by Jeffery Mishlove. One more shout out to Mishlove. New Thinking Aloud, interviews with Pierre Grimes. A fantastic introduction or way into this game. Forward by Juan and Maria Balboa, who, as we've been talking about, Pierre helped train them to be able to translate the work so we could actually do philosophy. They have a forward here. Forward 2 by some guy, I don't know. Someone who was interested in Christianity, I guess. Wanted to become a priest or something. Maybe we can read that at the end. Doran Hunter from Buckeye, Arizona. Don't know him. Jeffery Mishlove, PhD. Check him out on YouTube. I've only seen the interviews with Pierre Grimes, so that's what I recommend you check out. They're a lot of fun. They're very charming, by the way. He seems like a very genuine guy, Jeffrey. Here we go. Socrates and Jesus. Ray.
He better not.
I'm cute. Like,
unbelievable sluts these.
All right, lots of cheering and lots of sound drops for the beginning. Among the rolling hills north of here, there is a meadow where souls of those who have recently died meet to discuss their former life on earth. It is here that they greet those souls coming down from heaven and up from the house of Hades. After they greet old friends and relatives, tears flow and laughter follows as they share their stories. Then they settle down for the presentation of a play that is not a play. It continuously plays from the beginning for each soul. It can be stopped and started at any time a soul wishes to pause and reflect on any part of this strange play. Even before the play unfolds, opposing voices are heard that raise troubling doubts and concerns about the ideas presented in the play itself. Let's hear those voices. The chorus. Oops. Here is the chorus. In the red. Another showing of this empty play is about to begin. I'll tell you. Actually, let's make chorus empty. Let's make the chorus this side. Oops. Here we go. There we go. The chorus over here. Excuse me. Chorus in white. Another showing of this empty play is about to begin. I'll tell you that whatever is said will never get you anywhere. How can anyone claim to speak for Socrates or Jesus? On the face of it, it is arrogantly presumptuous. A dialogue with these two is as improbable as it is impossible. It is going to be as foolish as it is absurd. There are so many interpreters who claim to speak the truth. The roars of these conflicting voices drown out one another. How can anyone find a single voice amidst all these voices that is true above all the others? These voices may appear sometimes to share something, but their differences are what confuse us true believers. Once you have heard the voice of Jerusalem, who needs the empty chatter from Athens? You may not be able to escape, but we can warn you that nothing worthwhile can follow. The best words is a hollow echo of man's stupidity in trying to comprehend the incomprehensible. Man can never understand his own folly because of his own inherent ignorance. Says the chorus. Oh. Here comes the anti-chorus. Put aside your desire and escape, and see if there really is something here for you. Let's wait and see what is yet to be said. You believe nothing will come of this, don't you? I'll tell you that everything you will hear discussed right here can turn you around to ponder something truly astonishing. So just watch how the symphony of words can overcome your chorus of disappointment. How the symphony of words can overcome your chorus of dissonant voices. Awaken your curiosity and you'll see how well-placed words can dispel your confusion. Perhaps behind your desire to flee, you are afraid of what new fear may come from all of this. Could your worry over there conceal your fear of the mind? Wow. That's the opening. Pretty good in terms of how to shut down even this book. Pretty good. Steel man attack. How can we know? Lots of people claim to speak for Jesus. That's impossible. And as impossible or as improbable as a dialogue like this could happen. There's no way of turning us around. We are inherently stupid and ignorant. Just give up. And the chorus, anti-chorus is saying, could what's behind your fear and objection be a fear of the mind? You speak of discordant voices claiming to speak for Jesus. Jesus wants you to give me money. Jesus wants you to kill the brown people. Jesus hates women. Yes, everyone has different views. And they're all discordant. But could a truly harmonized symphony of the words turn us around? Can we replace our confusion with curiosity? Not knowingness, wonder. Can we overcome our problems and the fear of the mind, says the anti-chorus. What a way to start! Clap. That's it. Strong start. All right. Now enter stage right. Socrates. It is good that we could come together and explore some ideas. Jesus. The question we were given was, what has happened to the gifts we left man? Surely Providence has brought us together, and even now she might be somewhere listening to what we say. Jesus. Yes. Yes. The divine moves in profound ways and has finally brought us together to answer that very question. While it is curious that we have been asked to do this, there is no ignoring that request. So, with our resized figures, Jesus is saying, yes, that is true. Wait, no, Socrates. No, Jesus. You have been, let's do it again. The divine moves in profound ways and has finally brought us together to answer that question. The question, what happened to the gifts we left people? While it is curious that we have been asked to do this, there is no ignoring that request. You have engaged in many skillful explorations in your dialogue, Socrates. Why not go ahead and lead this one? I'll follow along and I'll pick up your style of dialoguing as we go. It is likely that you are no stranger to Hellenic thought. I ask that because, from what I have heard, you lived rather close to the center of Stoic thought. And you also speak Greek, don't you, Jesus? Yes, that is true. I was born in Nazareth in Galilee, which was part of a culture that was deeply influenced by Hellenism. We had 300 years of Hellenic thought in Nazareth, and we were bilingual, with the Greek language playing a key role throughout the entire region. Galilee, by the way, had no capital, and, most curious to some, only one small synagogue in Magdala. The center of Stoic and Cynic philosophy was only a day's walk from where I was born. Those philosophers were living their teachings. Their philosophical systems have much in common with what has been attributed to my teachings. However, neither of these schools, the Stoic or the Cynic, of philosophy ever attempted to create a church system. They were content to express their own thought as a way of life, rather than a way of belief. Ooh. Interesting already. So very close to the center of Hellenic thought. By the way, in our introduction, we've been talking about how Socrates was different from Pierre in that there was a tradition of dream analysis, of midwifery, of philosophy that Socrates grew up in, whereas Pierre Grimes, of course, had to reinvent and recreate and rediscover, probably more accurate. Socrates. Once again, I see that there is a greater depth behind your life and teachings than I had imagined. Do you know that we call Stoic and Cynic philosophers Platonic? Do you know that that's what we call them? The Stoics and the Cynics? They came after me and did their own interpreting. They are without metaphysics, they're without mythology, and they're out without dream work. Yet for all that, they are still part of our spiritual tradition. Remember what we said at the beginning, the 4 pillars of Philodianoia? Philosophy, which is applying our understanding to the realm of being, that's metaphysics. Midwifery, applying understanding and the dialectic to removing our problems, which are caused by belief. Dream analysis, applying understanding the dialectic to get our providential guidance and aid from our spiritual guru, our dream master. And mythology, sharing that with others, creating stories to represent those other things. And he is saying, hey, the Stoics and the Cynics, by the way, these are the most common philosophers that you will see on YouTube. This is pretty much what we call philosophy, or what we think of as Platonic philosophy. But it doesn't have it doesn't have metaphysics, so there's the first one gone. It doesn't have mythology, there's the 4th one gone. Doesn't have dream work, there's the 3rd one gone. And of course, we could add, by the way, they don't do midwifery either. So, missing all 4 fundamental pillars of Hellenic thought. Not there, and yet we call them Platonic. And yet we lump them in with Socrates and Plato. See how stupid we are? But we can turn it around. Now, I'm noticing that these figures move postures quite often. I wonder if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think maybe I will... I don't know. Maybe it's fun. If you want to join the Discord and give some feedback, and the feedback has to go along these lines. I love your little characters to show who's speaking, but speed them up, their changes, or slow them down. That will accept no other criticism. I think I might slow them down a little bit. Right, let's keep going. Socrates continues. It was during... okay, so the Cynic and Stoics. They are without a metaphysics, mythology, dream work, and they are also without philosophical midwifery. Let's add that one in ourselves because we're clever and smart people. We're lovely, clever chickens, aren't we? It was during those times that some philosophers took on the name Cynic. But that name, of course, is Greek. In Greek, it means dog, and was used by the populace as an abusive and derogatory term. It was also at that time that philosophers were driven underground by the oppressive forces of society. As a result, some became secretive and their teachings became esoteric. Did you get into these philosophers? And by the way, Jesus, what do you make of your interpreters? Now, this is huge. This is what we started today talking about. We started talking about how the unsuspected false belief, the pathologos we carry, that we will all have as human beings if we don't do midwifery, philosophical midwifery, which we're learning here, causes us to be blindly and viciously loyal to the same fucking bullshit that causes our problems and causes the worst actions, injustice, and suffering in the world. That's why we called the Nazis dogs. They were fierce warriors. They were fiercely loyal to their leader, but their leader was fucking Adolf Hitler. Therefore, dog. The Nazi dogs. Now, up until the last 10 years, that would be a very uncontroversial thing to say. But because we have never addressed the root cause behind Nazism, the pathologos, and more specifically the German cultural milieu pathologos, that is common among many German families, we never defeated the Nazis, they just surrendered. Hitler said, oh yeah, you don't have to, this doggish blind loyalty to me, I'm letting you off. I'm saying heel dogs, heel. And so they raised the white flags, and that confused Pierre, who was fighting these Nazis, literally in World War II, and other American, Australian ally warriors. These were fierce warriors, and all of a sudden, they're raising a white flag? What happened? Don't know, never asked, never addressed. Therefore, 2025, they are back in the White House of America and in the populist parties being supported by the Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, also a racist, clearly, doing Hitler salutes, Nazi salutes behind the presidential podium of the American president. In other words, we didn't win the war, they just surrendered. In other words, we haven't yet learnt how to address problems and solve problems.
Anything to avoid self-reflection, right?
And also,
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
we're not actually solving the problems. Now, interesting, we talked about that and used it as a metaphor to understand our own souls, because we are humans too. The Germans are just as human as you and I. It's easy to call them Nazi dogs, but we also have to recognize what then is my doggish, unsuspected, blind and fierce loyalty to. What is my unsuspected false belief? Because you know what? I am also a human being evolving from caveman times. I am also a soul with something to learn. The absurdity of saying, everything I knew from childhood is right and always right. I'm not here to learn as a soul, as a consciousness. That's so fucking absurd when you think about it. Oh yeah, sure. Don't ever question your parents because, yeah, they were enlightened mystics, all of them. They were greater than Socrates, sure. Your parents. Not the guys next door, not the guys across the street, not the guy living in the apartment building above you, but yours. Oh, absolutely. You've got nothing to reflect on.
Anything to avoid self-reflection, right?
Right? Absurd. And we also said, because of that human condition at this low level of evolution, barbarian caveman level of evolution, for it to be a block to the Logos means you have to be viciously against the Logos. You are at war with your own mind. So anyone who comes along and says, you don't have to be a slave, you don't have to suffer, you don't have to repeat the same problems, you don't have to perpetuate the family clan tradition of injustice towards your children. You can be better, you can be happier, you can have better relationships, you can evolve, you can escape, as Socrates says, the chains of fate and the prison of reincarnation. When we say the best possible words, the most harmonious words, the human reaction is fucking vicious, which is insane. And it's been my life. My whole life I have just only faced that. Not only, but almost always. Which has been so confusing to me because it makes sense. Don't you want to be happy? And we talk about the toaster on the channel. If you have a toaster, don't you want to understand how to fix the toaster? Absolutely. Punching a toaster, torturing a toaster, doesn't fix a broken toaster, right? Of course, that would be crazy, says any human being. What about yourself? Punishing a human being or punishing yourself? Whether it be a bad grade, whether it be getting fired, whether it be sent to jail, whether it be beating somebody up in the street. Will that solve problems? Oh no, that's different. What? You value a toaster more than a human being? By the way, that's the irrationality and immaturity that we read in chapter 1 of the midwifery book. That was the root puzzle. Why are we not applying that same basic level of rationality to humans that we apply to toasters? By the way, if the more you understand a toaster, you can not only fix it when it's broken, you can improve it. Give it a timer for doing pancakes. That'd be nice. In other words, understanding solves problems and allows us to reach our higher goals. Then why are we loyal to beliefs instead of understanding? So, interesting that the word dog came up considering that introduction. Interesting too that we said, hey, despite that, we don't have the time to keep this esoteric, to keep this a hidden teaching, to keep this underground. Yes, I know, and fucking believe me, I know. I have faced all of that shit as somebody naively, hey, everyone can benefit from this, let's all learn. No, fuck you, in all the possible ways. I got the fuck yous. Very lonely path I've walked so far, especially doing this in Australia. There are more people in California interested in this, for whatever reason. And in other parts of the world, there are a few bright spots where there seem to be more people curious about this kind of thing. But we're saying, hey, we don't keep this esoteric anymore. We don't keep this underground anymore because of the oppressive forces of society. We don't have time. We don't have time to pussyfoot around, Don't you want to be nice to my Nazi beliefs? Aren't I entitled to my Nazi opinions? But I want to hurt people who look different than me. Isn't that my freedom? Don't I have freedom to have a gun and shoot people that I don't like? We don't have time to lie to those people, to baby their ignorance. That's why we have this podcast and doing my best and stuff. And I know I can get better at it. Today we have these little pictures. It's a little bit better, but I'm still working on how to best communicate what's most important and beneficial. But in other words, it's not esoteric. But here he's saying this is why it was becoming esoteric. Number one. Number two, the cynics are dogs. Well, in what sense? Don't know yet, but that's a puzzle. Why do they call the cynics dogs? Number three, these people who we call philosophers, or call within the Hellenic or Platonic tradition, philosophers, Stoics and cynics. By the way, Stoicism is the most popular kind of philosophy that I've seen on YouTube. They're not philosophy. It's not philosophy. It's just not. It doesn't have metaphysics. Philosophy's out. That's what metaphysics is, philosophy. It doesn't have dream work. Central for developing philosophy. Doesn't have midwifery. That's not in there, but we added that. But we are aware that we're adding it, so maybe we'll hold back because we don't want to add into the text because that's interpretation. But we can keep a puzzle. Hey, there's a list of three terms he's given us. He's given us metaphysics, true philosophy, which is understanding, dianoia, applied to nous, which is being, which is metaphysics, not the physical world like the Stoics want to think about. Mythology is sharing your work through stories. That's the fourth pillar. Dream work is the third. So this might also be an instruction to us. So he's saying, hey, this is an introduction to play the game, meaning he's inviting you to take part, which means he's not going to force feed you the answers. He is going to give you lists that are incomplete. It's up to you to recognize there is a series there. A series of terms that can be grouped together. Once you've realized that there is that series of terms that can be grouped together, you have to write them down, or at least put them together in your mind. Then you have to hierarchically arrange them according to a model of some kind. Ideally, the model of the dialectic. So we've done, 3 terms, that's a list. Mythology, metaphysics, mythology, and dream work, number 1. Arrange them. Okay, arrange them according to what? A hierarchy. Yeah, a hierarchy based on what? Are we familiar with a set of terms? Well, because we have been active in the game ourselves, we haven't just been babies, we have realized that we have put together this art of love, not love of wisdom. Where's my pen? What's going on? Uh-oh. All right, I couldn't get my pen to work, so we're using the mouse. So, metaphysics. The love, philos, of Sophia, which is the divided line. This is the work that we did the last couple of episodes in midwifery, and so midwifery 90-ish and or 100-ish, and the first symposium one, this was the notes that we made on our first symposium episode, the divided line from book 6 of Plato's Republic. This image thinking, the smallest part, the smallest thing that we can use, the smallest way of using our mind, shapes and colors, caused by beliefs. A is caused by beliefs, image thinking is caused by beliefs, and just serves to re-justify the beliefs that you had coming in. So that's what a debate is. Debate. We have to cross this line into from opinions of the world of becoming, the physical world, where we have ignorance and obscurity. We want to cross the line into the intelligible, the realm of being, which is eternal and true. And you have that experience as the experience of nous, or knowing with a capital N. That's the biggest part of the divided line. And that gives us clarity. But understanding is of that realm of being, whereas your image thinking is of your beliefs. That's why we project, why we have interpretation. The midwifery is crossing that line. Philosophy is using understanding to know being. The study of being is literally metaphysics, beyond physics or prior to physics. The physical world is here. So if there's no metaphysics, it's not philosophy, by definition. Philos, Sophia, the love of these two things. Wisdom is not only knowledge, but it also requires an understanding to be able to use it as a virtue to guide your functioning. So, we recognize that in this thing, the author is saying, hey, they don't have metaphysics, which means philosophy. They don't have dream analysis. They don't have mythology. We have a list of 3 things. We carry that list until one day in our learning, we realize that these are 3 things within a greater list. But fortunately for us, because of what we did yesterday and the day before, we already have that list. So this is how you look for puzzles. You look for a list of terms. Hey, you're playing Resident Evil. You have a blue gem, a green gem, and a red gem. But the painting with all the missing gems on it also has a purple gem, meaning you've got to go and find the purple gem. It's obvious in a game. And this is the archetype of the games. This is the paradigm upon which the hero's journey is based. The human quest.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're all wizard Harrys. Hooray. Hooray indeed. Which means we've got a puzzle. So this is also how we read. We don't just want to listen to what the character is saying, Socrates is saying. We want to understand if there is a structure behind his thinking. If he's thinking according to a structure. If there's a principle that motivates, that causes, that constructs his thinking. So we can raise our mind to the mind of Socrates. Wouldn't that be neat? Yay. Yay indeed, kids. Yay indeed. So, already we've got a puzzle. Missing midwifery. Why? Now we can add it, but we can wonder if there is a puzzle, because this is not only is it a puzzle, he's introducing to us as the reader the idea of puzzles. He's helping us learn to read. Fucking amazing. This is why he's the Pele of philosophy. But also he's giving us one. He gave us all 3. He only left out one thing. He's giving us an easy win to begin with. But also saying, hey, sometimes the answers to the puzzles are themselves a deeper question. So now as we read, we can carry this question in the back of our mind. Why did Socrates not mention midwifery right here to Jesus at the beginning? See that? It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
Thank you. What's that chipmunk that was the girl chipmunk that Alvin was in love with? His early cartoons.
It's a win-win.
Sounds like her. So this is, we're learning some stuff about reading itself. Already lots of fun. Already so much fun. Maybe I'll make my picture a bit smaller. It's a bit unbalanced. You know, back in. So here we go. Got a puzzle. Why dog? Why not midwifery? And what is the significance that we today lump Stoic and Cynic philosophers in with the Platonic, considering they don't have any of what's needed for philosophy? They're missing all four. Could that be why he said interpreters? Interpreters. If interpretation is not understanding because you are not seeing what's there, or you're adding stuff that isn't there, could that be why we lump Stoics and Cynics in with Platonics, even though they couldn't be further from what it is? Lots of questions. We are really puzzled like that, those people. Jesus. Yes, I did know that. Wait a minute. Socrates asks, did you get into these philosophers? These secret, esoteric, driven underground because of the fear of the mind and the war against philosophy, especially by the church, by believers. Did you get into these philosophers? And what of your interpreters? Jesus says, yes, I did know that. Did you believe that there could be a center of these philosophers living so close and I ignored what is central to me? Of course not. Before we decide on the meaning of my words, you have to decide who speaks for me. Most have a popular view of my mission drawn from what are called the Gospels. They include Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. Apart from these, there are also the teachings of Paul. But there is no harmony among these works. There is another set of Gospels called the Gnostic Four. Ooh. And they need to be explored and looked at before you decide what my teachings are, says Jesus over there in the corner. It did not stop with them, since later interpreters went on for many years to create their own versions of my sacred work. Socrates. I am pleased we cleared up that point. Now the struggle over who could speak for you must have been a lively one. Yeah, no joke. A lot of people killed and tortured and justified the torture and killing. That's not the interpretation I have. That's Protestant. I'm Catholic. Blah, 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 blah. Stupid, stupid monkeys. Aren't we? Not always. We can do this and get better. Right, the struggle over who could speak for you must have been a lively one. We will need your reflections upon this if we are to understand why your teachings fragmented into these clashing groups. Good point, Sock. Doubtless your followers were equally clashing with one another, and are likely even now in 2025. Or whenever you're watching this, I have heard that while you have continued your dialogues even here, there are wildly different interpretations of them. So Socrates is continuing his dialogues in heaven. That's cool. I'll trade you my reflections for those you have had with your group. True it is. And since my departure from Earth, I have been in dialogues here with Orpheus, Musaeus, and both Homer and Hesiod. And then there is Palmades. You doubtly know of his curious exploits and his divine counterpart. Now we have a list. We have a list of Orpheus, Musaeus, and Homer and Hesiod put together. And then there is Palmades, and he has a divine counterpart. Do you know these people? I know of Homer, and that's it. A little bit of Hesiod, but I focused more on Homer. Socrates called Homer the most divine of all the poets. And we can see the work in the story of Achilles in the Iliad as somebody going through midwifery and dream analysis. And soon on the channel, we will get into the Balboa translation, the accurate translation of the Odyssey. Or someone will go through it with us. I'm not sure if it's going to be me or someone else, but it's an interesting one. Especially considering the role women play in that one. So I don't know who these people are, most of them, but maybe you do, and maybe you can find a list, and maybe you can find a puzzle there. So maybe we will learn more about these people later. So share your insights on the chat if you know these dudes. Jesus. You say your group included Orpheus and his son, Museos. Surely that is a wondrous group. I do know of Orpheus as the first prophet among your people, the founder of your theology, and he brought your people to understand the symbols that unlock the mysteries. I have heard his oracles covered much, and he left your people with the vision of the ages, didn't he? You ask a question from a background I couldn't even guess you had. Then, with a smile, you drop in something that I had not heard about. What is this vision of the ages that you mentioned just now, Jesus? It should not surprise you that I have known about the prophets and theology, because theology is the study of the nature of the divine. Ology means study. Theos or Dios is God, the divine. I learned of this vision from sages I have encountered here, just as you have encountered sages in your group. I recently spoke to one who described in mighty words that man's condition is that he is emerging from ignorance and reaching for that intelligible light that brings to birth a kind of understanding that benefits its beholder. Sounds similar to what we were just talking about, right? We are emerging from the realm of ignorance, this side of the divided line, to touch nous or knowing or being, which is also described as the brilliant light of pure being, what Jesus just called the intelligible light. And this gives birth to understanding. So understanding is the birth or shadow of this, which we learn through right opinion and reading text, and we develop a mastery of ourselves so that we can go back, we can make sense of it, we can go beyond it, and we can use that understanding to help others in midwifery, which hasn't been mentioned in the book yet. So this Orpheus guy, who's a prophet, talking about the founder of the theology of Socrates' theology, Jesus is saying, hey, from your sages, Socrates, I have spoke to one, didn't say who, it's probably not, might not be Orpheus, who says we are in a process, as we have been calling the evolutionary process of crossing this line, emerging from our ignorance, fractured warring beliefs and doggish loyalty to the ignorance we got from childhood, into becoming mature, reflecting on our earliest teachers, touching that brilliant light, and giving birth to the understanding that flows from that intelligible light. Isn't that neat? As a light that we can touch, and it's your own mind. And intelligence isn't the thinking that we normally think of thinking, it's just the shadow of that. It's what this gives birth to. And in as much as we can participate in that kind of understanding, the more we are benefited. Isn't that neat? I think that's neat. That we have a light and we can touch it, and it brings us out of our ignorance. And from that light, if we focus our thoughts not on what mummy and daddy looked like when we were little babies. No, if we change our focus from dogs until focusing on this light, we give birth to a different way of functioning called understanding, and it benefits us. Isn't that neat? And fun? We don't have to fight. We don't have to be like little baby savages throwing our poop around. Isn't that neat? I think it's neat. And as soon as I learn how to do voting on my Twitch chat, I will do a vote, and you can vote whether you think it's neat or not neat. I think it's neat. Says Jesus, I recently spoke to one who described in mighty words that man's condition is that he is emerging from ignorance and reaching for that intelligible light that brings to birth a kind of understanding that we call dianoia. That's why we love it in Philodianoia. A kind of understanding that benefits its beholder. Oh, benefit. Get me some of that benefit, right? Socrates. Indeed, as I listen to your words, I see I have found another person I can reflect with, who will awaken what I most want to grasp. Isn't that neat? He found a buddy to talk to. Hooray. Yay. As I listen to your words, said Socrates, I see I found another person I can reflect with who will awaken what I most want to grasp. So please, so that's another question. What is it that Socrates wants to grasp? That understanding? That light? Something else? So please share with me this vision that sounds indeed as if it came from Orpheus. Ooh. Jesus. From what I learned, the vision was originally sculpted in stone and placed at the entrance to the temple of Apollo in Thrace. In Thrace. If you want a good vacation, go to Thrace. As they say, once bitten, twice shy. Thrace, have a good time, or stick a needle in your eye. That's the tourism board of Thrace. Visit Thrace and embrace the temple of Apollo, or else you are hollow. They have a fantastic tourism department in Thrace. It's said that at the entrance of the temple of Apollo in Thrace, it said that at first mankind was without the words to understand himself. Then with the dawn of language came the age of sages and prophets. And this was followed by the eclipse of that light. And finally, its restoration came with the dawn of true man. So what have we been talking about today? We are evolving out of our barbarian savage form where we were blindly loyal like dogs to clan leader, blind doggish loyalty without reflection on who we're loyal to or what we're loyal to. Midwifery gives us the art of how to benefit ourselves by freeing us from that. But then we had the dawn of language. We could reflect, we could think now. We don't have to just be monkeys blindly or cavemen, savage, loyal to everything outside the cave is bad. Ooh, immigrants are bad, women are bad. Ooh, brown people, different caves are bad. Ooh, we don't have to do that anymore because we have language. You could have the Hellenic golden age of self-reflection, ousia, through logos to know the self. Third, second, first hypotheses of Parmenides. But then there was the eclipse of that light, which we could call the Dark Ages, where Emperor Justinian decided, no, screw this understanding bullshit. I like the barbarian way of thinking, so long as I'm tribe leader. So I'm going to invent Christianity and base politics. I can be king and priest. By the way, we've seen this in our work in the midwifery book. In chapter 2? Yeah, chapter 2, I think, where we explore the pathologos. One of the 11 sections was the defense of the difficulty in talking about our work in midwifery with our family members and loved ones. Hey, I realized I was blocked from this my whole life, and you are too, and it's causing the problems you have and the conflict within our family and us to be fucking savages. We can all reflect and become better. The difficulty in sharing that, which seems like an obvious thing to say, hey, I learned how to fix the toaster. Want me to fix your toaster? No one would say, fuck you, get out of here with your toaster fixing evil. We wouldn't say it about a toaster, but when we say it to our family members and loved ones, that triggers that savagery. And that's the difficulty in talking about what we learn. Right? But also there is that section, the defense of the pathologos. I have a right to be king and priest of the house. Hey, I was crushed by my parents. I have a right to crush you. I have a right to shit on what you do. And that's what I face playing music on the street sometimes. That's what happened to me this week. That guy that beat me up and I couldn't get away because he had my guitar. So that was like that scene in that Superman movie, how you had to hold the baby up and take the punches. Yeah, sucks, but that's where I was. Only a learning experience and all that. But clearly, his first reaction to me doing something that he wanted to do but couldn't because he was blocked was to shit on me the same way his dad shit on him. That's not good enough. I could tune it better. I could play it better. Give me the guitar. Blah, 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 blah. You're arrogant. You're not learning from me. I don't know this guy from fucking gym. Why should I learn from him? I don't give a shit what he has to say. You're arrogant. You're not letting me be. I have a right to be king priest. I show no understanding. I show no expertise. I'm not somebody that you've asked for advice, but I have a right to inflict my ignorance and injustice on you. I have a right because my daddy did it to me. Fucking dog. It's a dog of a person. By definition, blindly loyal to injustice without reflecting on it. No reflection. That's what we face from our family too. I have a right. I love my opinions. Hey, the guys next door get to do their opinions to their kids with their crazy religion. The guy across the street gets to crush their children with their dumb opinions they love. Why don't I get to crush people with my opinions? Which is why the Pathologos party, the right wing, the MAGA, the fascists, the Nazis, while they inflict the worst suffering, whenever anyone says, hey, that's bad, stop it, reflect on why you're doing it. No, I get to do it. That's literally one of the talking points from the Israeli politicians. Hey, you got to do colonialism. Why can't we genocide a population and take over their land? You got to do it. It's not fair. Stop victimizing me. I'm the victim. Cry bully, we call it sometimes. I'm bullying and crying whenever anyone says stop bullying. It's the addiction. That's the eclipse of the light. Socrates helped us see, hey, that's the pathologos. A loyalty to false beliefs and the pleasure associated with inflicting the sadistic pleasure, the smile on people's faces as they genocide. Hey, we've seen it in 4K. We've seen the Israeli troops murdering children and celebrating. We've seen the Jewish families saying, oh, look at that, look, we are savages, just like the Palestinians, ha 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 ha, they're less than human. And the family bonding together. Yes, we all are bound together in hate of the other. That's the eclipse of the light. We are not other. We are all selves. We are all meaningful. We are all valuable. And every single last one of us is here for a reason. And that reason is to move from that ignorance, blindly loyal to their false beliefs about ourselves and reality, into understanding, which is the, as we saw earlier, is birthed from the pure light of intelligible being. We all have a light within us. We all share that consciousness. And true understanding is a kind of understanding, dianoia, that comes from that and leads us back to it. Takes us from our savagery into a, what is he calling it? A dawn of the true man. Right? The written at the temple, entrance to the temple of Apollo, which is a mythological representation of philosophy. Apollo with his sister. No, Apollo and Aphrodite go hand in hand. The love of understanding with Apollo, with the joy of seeing the beauty of everything coming together. Aphrodite. Those two reach the hypaxis Hermes, the god representing the dialectic, which we're learning here. So, we didn't have words, so again, cavemen. Then we had language. We discovered the logos, and we used that logos to do ousia, reflect on ourselves, giving us people like Diotima, the great female guru and sage, Parmenides, Socrates, and then we had the Dark Ages. The counter-attack to that, which we also face within our soul. When we awaken the logos in this game, we start to have insights, we start to have new understanding, then we have a counterattack that knocks us down. Why? Because it wouldn't be, if human beings have a block that blocks us from understanding, it would be a crummy block. It wouldn't be the most powerful force in the universe if it didn't block you as soon as you started having insights. So we see it historically and we experience it ourselves going through this evolutionary process as a soul. Isn't that interesting? The macro and the micro. As above, so below. Structural similarity is the fancy name for it, allowing us to use analogy to think about different levels and unlock mysteries. So, dawn of language, we had the age of the sages and prophets, and that was followed by eclipse of that light. Finally, its restoration came with the dawn of true man. That's what we are doing now. Hooray for us. And clap for us. And what does the oracle say about that?
That's weird that you think that.
And it's weird that we're thinking that. And what does Emma say?
You've been a bad little girl and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now?
Not really appropriate. What do you say, RM?
And I find that very entertaining.
And he finds it entertaining. So we're having lots of fun.
The problem Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude? Wonder, dude. 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 Wonder, dude.
Socrates. Come on, Soc. What do you have to say? Curiously enough, at our group's last talk, curiously enough, at our group's last talk, as we discussed not only the power of ignorance and its terrible grip on man, we also explored the nature of wisdom. And sought to discover if it has the power to overcome the worst effects of ignorance. The only popular remedy that was put forward by most was to become initiated into the Eleusinian mysteries. And most agreed that the failure to become initiated kept one in a state of mind we call ignorance. Ooh. Now, the Eleusinian mysteries, part of their culture back in the Hellenic time was you'd spend 6 months to a year or something studying this stuff, studying midwifery, dream analysis, and philosophy to prepare yourself for an event where half of the city would come together and take something called ergot, which is similar to what we call today LSD. So, even though we can have this experience of the brilliant light of pure being in many situations, it's a gift given to us randomly. It can happen in dreams. It can happen in meditation. It can happen in strong displays of energy, like in sport or childbirth. It also can be facilitated, not guaranteed, but can be facilitated with LSD, DMT, or ergot, or things of that nature. Okay? Because every state of mind, there's a biochemical equivalent associated on the physical realm. So you can, if you manipulate one, you can make the conditions for the other. Now, it's not always guaranteed. There seems to be a diminishing returns. So we have that famous quote from Alan Watts: once you get the phone call, put down the phone. In other words, once you know that there is a level of being, pick up philosophy to get back there through the development of understanding and midwifery to purify what brings you down. Hey, why did you come out of it? Oh, why did you lose it? Why did you go back to your beliefs? But for a lot of people, the way into philodianoia, the way into philosophy, is through an experience first. Now, I talked to Pierre about this, and he said about 50-50. Some people get into it because they love understanding. They love solving problems. And I have a lot of respect for those people. They love talking, understanding, solving problems, sharing understanding, solving puzzles. They want to help people. They want to help the world. And then by seeing the value and integrity of understanding, philosophy is the next step of understanding. It's understanding itself. And what's understanding? Well, reflection on causes and principles. I want to understand how the computer works, how the toaster works. I want to understand how to have a healthy relationship. Well, what is the cause of those causes? In other words, what is the cause of the principles that you study in science? That's the realm of being. That's the aspects or the eidos of that brilliant light of pure being. So a love of understanding leaves you with puzzles like, well, hang on a second. What causes 1 and 1 to equal 2? What causes gravity? What keeps every moment together? What causes my dreams? Because, hey, physical things are not explanation for everything, because the cause of me watching this podcast isn't my physical body. It's my mind. So what the hell's the mind? Because that's a cause. Now you're into philosophy. Socrates calls that the transition from the love of learning, philomathesis, into the love of wisdom, or that pure light of being that Jesus was talking about, and its offspring, that kind of understanding, dianoia. So some people get into it through that love of understanding, or the other half of it is the experience, the initiation experience. However you got it. Now, they had a tradition where they recognized this, and they had a formal, interesting, we talked about half the people getting through understanding, half the people awakening philosophy through the experience. Well, half of the city would be having this experience, which is interesting. A kind of macro expression of individuals, which is cool. So that was the Eleusinian mysteries. It wasn't just everyone take drugs and let's hope, let the cards fall where they may. No. You had to train, you had to learn about it, you had to do the work on your dreams and your midwifery. That's why we go and watch the story of the Iliad and Achilles, someone who is the worst person, solving his problems through dream analysis and midwifery, facilitating a light experience on the battlefield as well. So that's the Eleusinian mysteries. And Socrates is asking, hey, is that wisdom experience enough to solve your problems too? Or are they different things? Is the activity of solving problems different than the activity of gaining wisdom? And he's saying that the only popular remedy seems to be the wisdom one, which is interesting because we had that question from earlier. Why did he leave midwifery out of that list? The only popular remedy that was put forward by most, not everyone, was to become initiated into the Eleusinian mysteries, and most agreed that the failure to become initiated kept one in a state of mind we call ignorance. Interesting. So, I think it's okay to call it there. 2 hours almost on the recording. So yeah, we've got a lot of puzzles. We've got a lot of review and a kind of clarification or a thumbs up from the text on a lot of the things that we have been discovering on our own about the love of understanding, about how it has philosophy, mythology, dream analysis, and midwifery. We've seen how that our author is going to give us puzzles as we go, and those puzzles are going to roll over, so hold on to them. Hey, wisdom, that's philosophy. But why are they saying that the initiation into the wisdom experience solves our ignorance? We don't say that because we have midwifery. So does that puzzle help later on? This is how we read. This is how it's fun.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder?
Wonder, dude. Lots of wonder dudes. Yeah, so interesting, fun, lot to puzzle about, and I hope to see. Thank you for joining me, of course. Once again, feel free to. Guess I bite it. Feel free to join on Twitch. You can follow along in real time. You can join the YouTube channel. You get a notification when we go live there. You will get a notification if you join our Discord where we go live. You can donate to the channel underneath, and you can find a free copy of a text that you can download for yourself or read online if you don't have that extension underneath. Thank you once more for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next. Bye.